Okay, welcome everyone to our next interview for Municipal Campaign School. While we are meeting virtually in Oxford County, I'm going to start with the land acknowledgement. So we do have Municipal Campaign School partners and students across Southwestern Ontario. And as you begin your journey into politics, we invite you to consider how all levels of government and their elected leaders can tackle the 94 calls to action found in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We do this to affirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improve our own understanding of local Indigenous people and cultures. We acknowledge that there were people, culture, and traditions on all of these lands long before we were. We acknowledge the traditional territories of Neutral, Attawandaron, Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabeg, Lenape, Algonquin, Lenni Lenape, Ojibwe, and Chippewa people. So we are joined today by Maureen, a former politician with East Zora Tavistock for 27 years. So we are very lucky to have Maureen here and ask her some questions about her experience. So Maureen, thank you so much for making the time to share this information with us. So before we get started, would you mind, I guess, maybe giving a bit of background, telling us a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. Well, thank you for the kind invitation to join you this morning. As a background, I'm a registered nurse, former registered nurse. I'm retired now. I've been a nurse for 44 years. And wife, mother, my husband and I were married for 35 years. I have 3 adult sons. My mother still lives in Woodstock, so born and raised in Oxford County. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
So Kate and I, before you came on, the question we are just dying to ask is, what was it like to run 27 years ago? And what helped you make the decision to take the leap to run?
Well, it's a little bit of a story. I think at the time we lived on a rural acreage out in East Zora, and we lived on a county road. The county wanted to come along and expropriate some land. And, I wasn't too much in favor of that position, and had quite a bit of dialogue with one of the negotiators that they sent out. So at the end of it all, no, the land was not expropriated, and the man that was doing the negotiating, he said, you were pretty. I said, you were pretty sharp on that. He said, I think you should run for council. So I kind of took him at his word, and there was an election coming up, and I did. I put my name in the hat. Drove up to the township office. I had 2 of my little guys in the car. Went in to sign the papers, and you left the kids in the car, and one's honking the horn, and yeah, that's how it all started.
Amazing. How did your, to serve for that long is incredible. And, we're obviously trying to encourage more women to see themselves in that role. So could you kind of describe what your role was like?
So I just lost your audio there. I don't know if you can hear me, Lindsay, but I just lost your audio.
You might have to ask the question again. You just kind of froze there, Lindsay. Do you mind just asking again what the role was like, I think is what you were looking for?
Sorry, my sound cut out as well. So no, yeah. So I was just asking, we're trying to encourage women to kind of see themselves in this kind of role. So what kinds of things do you think made you successful for such a long period of time? And what was the job like for you in that role?
Well, at the time I wasn't working full time. As I said, my children were little, so I wasn't working full time, and that was a bonus. And as well, my husband was home. He was retired, and he was home all the time. So I did have the luxury of having someone there. And if you don't have strong support on the home front, it makes it difficult, especially if you're a woman, when you have small children. And, it's always a challenge when people are working and trying to have a lot of schedules. And as the children got older, they're all busy. And so having the support at home is key. So that would be first and foremost. And you know, being, I was, my goodness, I was quite a bit younger then. So, you know, being young and energetic, it certainly helps to pave the way.
What is something you accomplished? I mean, there's probably lots of things, but what's something that you look back on that you accomplished in that role that really made a difference that you're, you know, that you're proud of, and I think is an attestament to the opportunity in municipal politics?
Right. So I guess we have to remind ourselves that we never accomplish something on our own. It's always a group effort. Council is certainly a cohesive bunch. But yeah, during my terms, we were able to build a new arena in Tavistock. That was much needed. We dealt with a couple of local police changes. We had to change from our small town police force, and there was a lot of controversy surrounding that. We went to the Oxford Community Police Service, and then ultimately went back to OPP. We took our PUC hydro from being a small town PUC, and we became part of Erie Thames. That was a large step for our municipality, and a lot of improvements in parks and recreation and our fire departments. And, you know, just seeing all those things being able to grow and expand is always, you know, very gratifying.
We're going to talk a little bit now about, you know, we've heard from a lot of women that, and Katie is who we spoke to, Katie from Zora, and she made a similar comment, which was initially she was very involved in her community, but didn't necessarily see herself in politics because of some of the misconceptions around, you know, politicians and engaging in politics. So what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about politics and getting involved as a candidate?
Well, I think people think that they're going to go in and make a lot of changes on their own, you know, and you can certainly have those ideas in the background, but you have to understand that you're part of a team. Mm-hmm. And, you know, not every day is going to be a 10, not every vote is going to go your way. You have to be able to be a good negotiator. You have to be able to work with compromise, you know, and at the end of the day, you be prepared to live with the vote that happens and move on, because it's a long, well, it was a lot of the terms were 3 years, but it's a long 3 or 4 years. If you don't, I've sat on some very good councils that got along, and I've sat on some councils that weren't quite so well positioned. So if you have to go in there and be prepared to be a team member. And I mean, not to say that you don't have your own ideas and your own you know, way that you want to see things come forward, but it's a group effort.
I think a lot of women are sometimes concerned that if they're elected, they become kind of a lone voice at the table. So when you talk about kind of managing different relationships on council, how would you advise someone to kind of build those relationships if they were new to being elected or new to that role?
So it's getting to know, you know, each other fairly well. And actually, you know, your staff are so important. This is, if I was going to make one suggestion, staff, you know, they're there every day, day in, day out. You know, we're not always in the office. We're not always, they're answering the phones, they're dealing with the ratepayers. And so they've got your, you know, they've got your back. They are your backbone, and they're the ones that you really have to, you know, just appreciate and make sure that they're treated well.
And
Katie
Maureen, can you, oh, sorry, it's always hard with Zoom. Someone's talking over each other. So sorry, Lindsay.
No, go ahead, Kate.
I just butt right in there. Can you talk about the campaigning period, whether it was the first time you ran, or I think the last election, were you running for mayor, or can you just talk a little bit about the campaigning process that you've gone through in the past?
Sure. I mean, in the beginning, you know, it was, I was green, I was new, and, you know, you kind of follow what other people have done. You do the flyers, you know, and I was a part of some of the groups in the community. So you want to be, before you start to engage in, you know, in that, you want to become, you know, involved in community groups and get out and be seen as much as you can. But, you know, sometimes the ideas to run for council aren't always planted that many years ahead. So, you know, the flyers and the newspaper advertisements, and you always got to be prepared for the candidates night. That's one that's a little challenging. But over the years, you know, as you got to know more people and you got, you know, you were able to develop some different strategies. Yes, I did run for mayor in my last go, and that campaign, I wouldn't say that was probably the most challenging. I'll be very honest and tell you that I don't know whether it was because of I was a woman or because of who I was, but I had one of my campaign signs burned in the street in Tavistock, and I had other signs taken right out of Oxford County. I had people tell me, I didn't know you were running in St. Mary's. Well, yeah, my signs ended up in St. Mary's. So I don't know how those things happened, but they did. And, you know, it's part of life.
And did you do a lot of door knocking in your experience?
Yes, you have to get out and do as much as you can. That, you know, right from the get-go, you've got to be able to get out and be seen. And, you know, I'm sure who knows what's around the corner with COVID. I mean, that may be a whole different experience, whether people want to engage with people at their front door. That's you know, that's a whole different episode for the ones that are up and coming.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if we can just touch on the last election, it's unfortunate that you lost. You know, for any of our viewers that are concerned about running and the potential of losing, you know, would you say, can you explain just a bit of like the highs and lows? I mean, how did you know, not come to grips with it, but how did you accept the loss? Or was there certain things that if you happened to run again, you would do differently? Can you just touch on those things?
Well, I can't really think of too much that I would do differently, because I always knew I would run for mayor someday, but I was councillor in the beginning, and then I was deputy mayor for quite some time. And I had the wonderful opportunity to sit on county council when that was a group of 20. I went there as a deputy mayor, but I worked full time for most of the time that I was on council. You know, like as I said, I was an RN. So there's no possible way that you can run for mayor and do that job justice, as well as being a member of county council and still work full time. So it had to be at a time when I was, you know, had retired and that. So that was the time that it came. And no, I don't have any regrets. I mean, my opponent had been the mayor for a long time, and the incumbent always, well, we're both incumbents, but he was the incumbent mayor. So they always have a bit of a leg up. So I don't have any regrets at all.
Well, that's good. And yeah, I mean, it's great to be able to speak with someone with so much experience. Would you be able to kind of walk us through what that role was like for you day to day?
Yeah, every day. I mean, you could find yourself answering phone calls, answering emails, reading an agenda, dialoguing with other councillors, you know, on what was happening, contacting staff, asking for background. If it's a zoning or a planning issue, going out and getting out there and having a look at what's actually happening. I mean, it's one thing to read it on the agenda. It's another thing to go out and look at the site and see what's happening. So that's a very important thing. And then people really like to be, how can I say it? They like someone to get back to them fairly quickly. They like a response. I mean that I found that worked well for me. I was always very expedient in trying to get back to ratepayers, and they were always very kind and positive in saying, "Oh, I didn't expect you to get back to me so quickly." And some people, you know, obviously didn't follow that way. But yeah, that's I usually did most of I had a job that allowed a lot of latitude as well. So I mean, depends on if you are working full time, you have to have a position that would allow you to be able to get to the meetings, because they're not always evening meetings or day meetings, and a lot of the other committee meetings can happen at different times. So you have to have a lot of things following your way to be able to do it successfully.
If you think back, you know, at any point in your journey, what's something you know now that would have made it easier?
Probably just the relationships and knowing the people and the players in the game. I mean, you know, going in there, you really didn't know too many people that were involved, and you know, getting out and getting to meet all of your fellow councillors in the surrounding townships, and you know, just all of the players in the that bring things together. That makes it that much. You know, every term you would have more relationships. You'd know more people. You'd know where to go, who the key players were. That's the part I think that really made it. You know, and you just was able to build on every term.
Do
you want me to keep asking, Kate?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I talk a lot, so I'm like, Lindsay, you can ask questions this time. Go ahead.
This is actually one of my favorite questions because people usually have something almost right away. What is a piece of brutally honest advice that any woman considering running needs to hear?
Well, I think they probably need to know. I mean, I've been out of it for 4 years, but I wouldn't think things have changed much, that the old boys club still exists. So be prepared to manage that. And but I think that any woman is just as qualified as the next man. So I mean, it is what it is, and it will probably be a long time before things are changed, but that's being brutally honest. It's still out there, I'm quite sure.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons we're so passionate about municipal campaigns.
That's right, that you're doing what
we
you're
know
doing.
this is a very long-term change, but having this conversation is a good part of it. So I guess on that note, if we were to see more women or even, more diverse options represented on council one day, maybe it's 2022, maybe it's, 10 years or 20 years from now, if we were to get to a point where our councils were more diverse, what difference do you think we would see?
Well, I think if we had more women on council, I think that maybe women tend to be a little more compassionate, a little more empathetic, perhaps a little more approachable. I think that you may see that part come through a little bit more. I think men tend to take more risks, and they're a little more assertive. But I mean, we have a lot of assertive women as well. But I think the empathy and the compassion that just comes with being a woman, and they're a little more approachable.
We had a Kate, you can remind me of her municipality, but her name was Kate, who joined us when we did a panel discussion back in the fall. And she said, approaching your counselor should feel no different than approaching your neighbor and just having a conversation. And that always stuck with me because I think there's so much value to making sure people feel like those who are elected to serve us are going to be available to us when we need something. So it's just interesting to keep hearing people talk about how important it is to have leaders who are approachable.
Yeah, that was Kate McNaughton from Prince Edward County.
Yes.
So I think there's 11 on that council and 2 are female and the rest are male. And she had lots of great advice. And Maureen, I wanted to circle back to just you said the candidates debate night. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like I've heard and I've felt that it can be a little nerve-wracking to be kind of on stage or to not know exactly the questions that you'll be asked, and sometimes too the questions that are asked, can municipal government create that change, right? So I just wanted to get your impression of that debate speaking and the all candidates meeting.
Right. Yeah. The all candidates meetings are always, they're always a test of your fortitude. But being able to walk into a hall that's usually jam packed, full of people that you may not know all that many, and they're going to come up with questions or concerns, or I mean, it can turn quite, depending on who your moderator is. You have to have a strong moderator to keep things on the even keel, but that can be a pretty unnerving experience, especially for the first time. You should definitely get out and attend some of the candidates meetings and see what it's all about without walking into it before you've ever had that opportunity. But some of those can come undone a little bit if they don't, like I say, if you don't have a good moderator. So you have to be prepared.
How did you prepare for an all candidates meeting?
Like I say, that was quite a number of years ago, but I think I went to council meetings and I followed the council meetings a little bit before the election to try and get a feel for what but you're not going to gather that, of course, out of just a short number, but to try and get a feel for the issues, and of course talking to people, your neighbors and your friends and those that live in the township, to try and find out what the issues at hand are and what's been working and what's not working. What can you do differently? What can you do better than the person that you're running against? Why would they vote for you as opposed to someone else? So that's what you have to bring to the table.
Was there certain commitments or desires that you had hoped for when you were running for mayor, or even when you ran the very first time? Like, was there certain things that you campaigned on in terms of, you know, transparency, or you were looking to bring this to your community, those kind of things?
Yeah, I like what you say about transparency. I mean, there's always that issue that, you know, people aren't being told everything that they feel they should be. And, you know, and being accountable, you know, if people, if a vote doesn't go the way that some people think it shows, being able to tell them why and then what the process is. A lot of people don't understand the process and how things, you know, roll out sometimes. So doing a lot of educating and helping people understand goes a long way as well. So, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's interesting as well that we've met some students that feel that they may not have the right credentials to run for a position this fall or in the future. Would you, you know, would you say that's a misconception as well? That, I mean, obviously, you know, the passion and the desire to serve your community is a big one. But I think just speaking to that hurdle that sometimes we feel that we're not prepared enough or we don't know enough and those kind of things.
Hmm. Well, I mean, there's certainly a lot of once you're, if you do it fortunate enough to be elected, there's certainly a lot of courses and things that you can take and conferences, and certainly the learning curve is huge, and you can never, you know, there's really no course that you can take to make you the best prepared as you can be. But if your heart's in the right place and you have the time and you have the ability to be able to, you know, go out and talk to people and be able to, you know, you trust me, you've got to have a thick skin. You got to be able to take criticism. And like I say, not every day is going to be a 10. So you got to be prepared to get back up and keep on going. So yeah, just having some resilience and not feeling defeated if things just don't go your way.
Would you be able to share some of the tough criticisms you've received in the past that you've had to, you know, digest and hopefully let it roll off?
That's right. Well, you know, the people when they have zoning issues, or those are sometimes, you know, they want certain things done. And, you know, the way the Planning Act reads, or the way that, you know, certain bylaws roll out, it isn't in the cards, right? It never was there in the first place. So, you know, you might best suggest that, you know, if it's not going to happen, to maybe not even go down that road. But then people, you know, they often want to try. So you can, you know, give them your best, give them your best outlook, and, you know, you try to encourage people to contact all of their different counselors too. I mean, a lot of people don't seem to understand that that's very important when they're, you know, trying to get an issue brought forward. But just to, just to help people understand, I think, and be the person that you would want to go to if you had a problem. You know, that's kind of the way that you go about life, right? Be the person that you would want to be if someone else was dealing with it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we appreciate that. When we interviewed Katie Grigg earlier, she said an issue that she brought forward about washrooms in the recreation center there. She had a community member come forward and just say, you know, this has been on my mind for a long time, and I'm so glad that there's an avenue to bring this to, you know, to Katie or to an elected official to have their concerns voiced. And I think that's something that Lindsay and I hope to change is bringing more diverse voices forward and women, and also kind of reconnecting the community to, you know, municipal office, because sometimes it can be intimidating, you know, the wording or the agendas or how do these things work. So it's really great to hear that communication is obviously quite key.
Exactly, that's right. And I think people have to remember it's, you know, it's pretty much a 24/7 job, even though you don't think it is, because, you know, every time you go out of the house with your son or daughter to let's say the hockey arena, and you run into people, well, you know, their road didn't get plowed that day, or the snowplow hit their mailbox, or, you know, and everywhere you go, whether you go to parents' night at school or whatever, if you're the local counselor, you're the local, you know, politician, people are going to talk to you, and, you know, and you can't shun that. You have to encourage that, because that's what you signed up for. Okay, you can't say, oh well, you know, I'm not. It's not 9 to 5 job. It's, you know, you have to be able to talk to them, have that dialogue. It's phone calls late at night and early in the morning. Trust me, they're going to happen. So you have to be prepared for that.
And another question from me, from your experience too, obviously kind of being out of office now for 4 years, you know, I don't know if you still follow, I'm assuming you still follow lots of things, but is there a certain hope that you would like to see this fall for our region? You know, not any specific municipality, but is there anything that you would like to see come this fall with the elections?
Well, this will be the first election that I won't have had my name in for.
Yeah.
Let me see, 20, that'll be 31 years. So that's a long
Wow.
time. So it'll be a little, I'll be able to go to the candidates night and sit back if they have them. I'm not sure what the format will be with COVID, but be able to go to that and just, you know, be able to sit back and watch it from the other side for a change. So that'll be interesting. No, it'll be interesting to see, who puts their name in, where things happen. Yeah, it's like I say, I don't live in the township now. I moved out, so I live in the city of Woodstock, and I mean, I still have it. It never leaves your blood. Trust me. Once it's in your blood, it doesn't leave your blood. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think those were all the questions we had today. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, and hopefully it helps, you know, even just one more person think a little bit more about getting closer to putting their name on the ballot. Yeah. Is there anything else we didn't ask that you wanted to include, or any last piece of advice?
No, I don't think so. I think when you ask about qualifications, I think as long as you're honest and ethical, and you're in it for the right reasons, that you can maybe, you know, work well under pressure, and you're able to, you know, work out compromises. I think those are some of the top things that you want to have going forward.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Maureen. And we're hoping in the spring, if COVID allows it, we can do some networking for Oxford County. So hopefully, you know, we'll have an opportunity to invite you, whatever that looks like, if it's in a park, if it's back on Zoom. But we do like to ask those that we interview, if anybody has any additional questions, are they able to reach out to you or email you or get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Feel free anytime. I would be more than happy to have a fireside chat anytime.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
Well, thank you again for your time, and we look forward to hearing from you hopefully again soon.
Thanks so much for asking me. It's been a pleasure.